Today, the military said it's working on expelling convicted murderer Russell Williams from the Canadian Forces. They will strip him of his rank, they will strip him of his medals, and they will be recovering the pay he's received since his arrest. But will Williams receive his pension, pegged at about $60,000 a year? Now, Prime Minister Harper says the force is doing all it can to ensure Williams doesn't receive benefits. But just to be clear on this, because the military has been talking about this all week, they issued a statement on Monday. They issued a statement last night. They said it again today. The Canadian Forces cannot remove Colonel Williams' pension. But they did say on Monday, it was interesting because on Monday, the Brigadier General Neville Russell, he's the Director of Air Personnel, he said they would, quote, not play a role in the pension issue. They have no way of removing it, as I just said. But he went on to say it would be up to the federal government to enact legislation. Other than that, the pension belongs to Russell Williams. My next guest says to take the pension away from him would be undemocratic. Pension and benefits lawyer Ari Kaplan joins me in studio. First of all, Ari, why do you say that? Why do you think Russell Williams should get to keep his pension?
Well, Carol, let's put this in perspective. Colonel Williams, if he's still known as that, is not the first and unfortunately will not be the last person to go to jail with a pension. Pensioners are human beings like the rest of us, and we all commit crimes, not all of us per se, but as a society that's the case. As far as the law is concerned, the government as a matter of general policy does not take away people's property as a result of going to jail. And I guess I urge you to think of the pension as no different than someone's house. If someone goes to jail, we don't take away someone's house. So since the pension is really conceptually no different than that, unless there's extraordinary circumstances like we heard earlier on with specific legislation, and by that it means they're going to have to pass, Parliament will have to pass a "We are taking away Colonel Williams' pension act" in order to do that.
No, but they might also have, here's an idea, they might also say, look, let's bring in legislation that says if you are guilty, found guilty of a criminal act, and you work for a public service such as the military or CBC, whatever, then you are no longer entitled to your pension. How about that?
Well, I guess the argument there is why should we treat public sector workers differently than private sector workers just when it comes to specific issues of behavior in the workplace? I mean, the way the law and the pension plan treats Colonel Williams' pension, he's losing his job in the same way that when any employee loses his or her job, whether it's voluntarily or even for a heinous crime such as this, the pension is maintained. So I guess my problem with that kind of proposal in legislation is why would we take away someone's pension from Loblaws who works there, but not take away someone's pension who works just because they work for a government?
But you can understand how people are outraged about this.
Oh, absolutely. And by saying all of this, I want to make it absolutely clear that I'm not condoning, and in fact I'm repulsed, like every Canadian out there, by the heinous nature of these crimes. But I'm thinking about it from a pension policy perspective and as a workplace human perspective.
The Prime Minister says, here's the quote, when someone is convicted of a crime like that, they should not be receiving voluntary payments from the Government of Canada.
Well, I guess I disagree with Mr. Harper that I don't consider a pension plan to be a gift or gratuitous voluntary payment. I consider a pension, I guess, and I don't think I'm alone in this, in thinking that pensions are something that employees earn their entire life. They're paying into it and as part of their job, just like you, just like me, and just like a third of all Canadians out there. So in that sense, it really is like his house, the way you pay off a mortgage for your entire life, and by the time you retire, hopefully you have a nest egg there. That's not a voluntary payment either.
Let me put this to you. It seems to me that people don't like the idea of him collecting all of this money of a great salary, especially given what we've seen this past week about the details of his crimes. But there are remedies within society to punish him financially. I mean, civil lawsuits could be put in place to get at that money, and pension would certainly be part of it. Is that not true?
Absolutely, and this is getting a little bit out of my expertise, but there are always remedies. There are always legal remedies. There are always judicial procedures that can be done to collect for the a result of crimes. I mean, not using a Canadian example, but the famous example of O.J. Simpson's, where he was acquitted of the crime, but was found liable for millions of dollars to the family of the victims.
The other thing I wonder about, if the government was to pass some sort of legislation that said you're not entitled, or whatever contributions we made will take back, some sort of clawback system or whatever, what impact would that be? Would that mean that then if you're convicted of drunk driving, then you're not entitled to a pension?
Well, it depends how specific and it depends how broad such a law is. Certainly it's within Parliament's jurisdiction, and if it's the policy of this particular government that they want to implement some type of proceeds of crime clawback type of legislation, ultimately they're accountable to the people of Canada when it comes to election time. I mean, and we're in Parliament, so it's a minority situation, so they need consent of the other parties. So it's a political issue. They can do it. Whether that's good policy, well, you can see by my facial expression that I'm not in favor of that. But
if they did do it, Ari, what implication would it have for everybody else in society? Because that's what you have to think about with a law. You can't just go after one person. You have to think, well, what's going to be the rollout for other people?
Well, I guess ultimately that's a philosophical question. Each Canadian would have to sit back and say, how could a law like that potentially impact me, right? And I'm not talking about people that are necessarily, criminals and anything other than the grotesque nature of the crimes that we've heard about. But I mean, if the state is going to be intruding that far into the lives of ordinary Canadians for a drunk driving offense, and then you lose your pension for that, well, I mean, again, I think that's a hard issue that Canadians would have to debate at the election box if that ever were an issue, because as far as the law is concerned, we're far away from that right now.
All right, so your bet is that he's going to get to keep his pension.
I think his wife will get the majority of the pension for a whole number of ways that pension laws also protect people's family members, children, and spouses. Don't forget, Colonel Williams is married, and when if his spouse were to outlive him, she will get a pension. She shouldn't be held accountable for what her husband did. There's also a children's benefit in that same pension plan. So it'll be a far cry before anything terrible happens, I think, as a result of this.
All right. Pension and benefits lawyer Ari Kaplan, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Okay.